What's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Assassin's Creed ranking video for you guys here today. I'm going to be ranking all of the Assassin's Creed games through 2021, which will include Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Just a disclaimer, this is going to be my opinion, so if we can be respectful in the comments and discuss our different point of views respectfully, that would be best in my opinion. Let's try not to get too hateful, because at the end of the day, we all enjoy this franchise and we all have different opinions on the characters and the development of the different games. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the list. Coming in at last place at number 12 is going to be Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In my opinion, it was just way too big of a map. It ended up being so repetitive throughout the game that by the time I got to the end, the story mode was so forgettable. I had no connection to the protagonist. It was just not a good game in general for the Assassin's Creed franchise. If they would have left it as a standalone title without the Assassin's Creed name, I think it could have done better, but calling it Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think, put a lot of hindrance on what they could do in that game. Greece was beautiful, but besides that, I think it was very forgettable. Coming in at number 11 is going to be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, I do think they did learn from Odyssey and try to juggle being more like Assassin's Creed titles of old, as well as bringing some of the new flair into it. But by trying to please everyone, I think they ended up pleasing no one, in my opinion. Ivor is given abilities like social stealth that were used in a lot of the older games, but it seems more forced and a lot of the situations is not actually needed in. In my opinion, Ivor feels more like a side character. I don't ever feel like I'm taking over in this Viking era. I feel like I'm doing side quests towards someone else's bigger goals. So at the end of it, I just don't enjoy the game in general. Obviously, it's a beautiful, well-designed game, just mechanically, an RPG, but as an Assassin's Creed game, I don't rank it high, and I got pretty bored of it halfway through. I did finish it just because I wanted to make sure I finished the story, but it felt like I more had to force myself through it than actually enjoying it all the way through. Coming in at number 10, I do have Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, I do want to start by saying from this point on out, I did thoroughly enjoy every single one of these titles. Some of them maybe to different degrees of other, but none of them I did hate as much as I didn't enjoy Valhalla or Odyssey. But with Rogue, it really was more of a copy and paste. The menu and gameplay was pretty much Black Flag. They just threw in a bunch of collectibles and stealth side missions, trying hard to make the Templars feel like the good guys, that they almost changed the whole character dynamics, making the Templars have a lot of the traits that the Assassins did have and vice versa. I do think that Shay was a fun and protagonist with the idea that he was an assassin turned Templar, and there was a lot to dive into there. But I think overall the game lacked on the point that Unity did come out on the same year on the next-gen console, so this was kind of just a throw-in game for the previous generation of consoles, which ended up, I think, putting a hindrance onto what they could do and how much supplies they had to actually create this game. But all in all, it was a great experience. Coming in at number 9 is going to be Assassin's Creed Unity. Now, I never actually experienced any of the major bugs that a lot of people talk about, but for me, the gameplay and movement was clunky a lot of the time. It didn't feel like a smooth experience. The co-op mode was a fun and exciting new mode when it did work and when you could play it with your friends. But the overall story, in my opinion, climaxed a little too early. It kind of dragged on a little bit too much towards the end, which ended up maybe hindering the experience and just making it an okay story mode overall instead of maybe a great story mode. They did have some really cool tools and stealth that you could do in the game. The urban environment was awesome. I think it was great to parkour around, the way you can run through buildings and everything like that. But overall, I think it was just a okay game. It did have its problems, but it was a fun experience overall. Coming in at number 8 on the list is going to be Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now, I know this is probably my most controversial title in this whole ranking video, but for me, I never have been a fan of pirates and pillaging or spending a lot of time on the boat. That's probably my least favorite part of the Assassin's Creed games, is spending the time on the ships and the ship battles. So I hope that does help with why I have it so low, because I know I'm going to get a lot of comments about it down below. For me, the structuring for missions and gameplay was just average. I don't think that the missions and everything like that was great. Now, Edward's character development from pillaging to finding his purpose through the Brotherhood was a very compelling protagonist. I think it was a very enjoyable experience story-wise, but the overall game experience for me wasn't overall that great. And I do think that just has to do with the part that I'm not a huge fan of pirates or pillaging, spending time on a ship or anything like that. I think because of Edward, that is why it gives us such a great experience, because he is probably one of the best protagonists, well-rounded throughout the whole series, and what it actually means to be an assassin. Coming in at number 7 on the list is going to be Assassin's Creed 1. Now, this did start the whole franchise, and it basically gave us everything that we have through Assassin's Creed today. The gameplay was very repetitive in this game. You would have to really replay it to go ahead and understand how repetitive it was. At the time, of course, it was more of a game-changing experience because we really haven't had a lot like this. I do think having Altair as that first protagonist gave us a great start to the franchise and how they could develop these characters, but compared to a lot of the other games on this list, I just don't think they were as in-depth or just as well made. Obviously, this was back in like 2007, so it's hard to compare this to games made in 2020. But overall, I do think it was a good game and a fun game, but we do remember it in a little bit different of a lens than it probably would be to play it in 2021. Coming in at number 6 on the list is going to be Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now, I think this could be even higher on my list if they didn't push Evie to more of a side character, because in my opinion, she was a way better protagonist than Jacob was. I truly like Victorian era London. I know a lot of people complain about the buildings being a little bit too spaced out for real true parkour, but in my opinion, I really did enjoy this, with the smokestacks and things like that. Now, I do really like the comedic turn they try to put on the game. A lot of people don't really like the characters and the comedic turn they try to put on it, but I did enjoy it because it was a breath of fresh air in my opinion. So overall, I do think that gave me a better experience than most. I also really liked the combat. It was really smooth, really easy to hit these combos, and a really fun way to play the game. And also stealth was really fun in this game as well. I felt like it worked how it should. It was a little bit more prevalent than maybe some of the newer titles, and I think this was probably the last one that truly got me doing a lot of stealth that was fun and also felt like they actually wanted me to do it. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Assassin's Creed 3. Now, a lot of the reasons that people hated Assassin's Creed 3 would probably be the reasons that I actually enjoyed it. In my personal opinion, the present time finishing up Desmond's story was really fun to play. They had some really in-depth missions in this game in the present story. I didn't feel like we were going just for minute cutscenes hopping back into the Animus. It was more in-depth than that. I also really liked this time period with the Revolutionary War, so it made it fun with Connor's development through the war. I felt like I actually was taking part in a lot of these battles. I didn't feel like a side character with the war just being the backdrop, but I did feel like it played a little bit more into the setting than maybe some of the other titles. And just overall, I enjoyed this game. I know a lot of people don't enjoy Connor's story, but I do think with Connor and then having the antagonist as Haytham really did make the story well-rounded in my opinion. So that's why I have it at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Assassin's Creed Revelations. Now, pretty much 1 through 4, they almost all could have been number 1. I just ranked Revelations a little bit lower than the other 3 titles left because, in my opinion, it is the worst of the Ezio trilogy, even though it is a great game. I do think it was a great conclusion to Ezio's story. I just think the open world wasn't as great as some of the other games that were built around that time. I don't think the side content was very great. I think they lacked in that department as well. I do think them focusing on the narrative in this game maybe costed them a little bit in the gameplay side, but I think it was for the best because everybody wanted Ezio's story to go ahead and finish up in the best way possible, and I think that this game does do that. The gameplay does lack in a little bit of the styles with the new hook blade and things like that, but I do think the overall game was a great game and told a great story. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, this was a near perfect game in my opinion. There was very few things actually wrong in this game. The setting was beautiful. I wish it was a little bit more of an urban environment because those are the games I enjoy a little bit more because I do like climbing these buildings and fighting and stealth and things like that. But overall, I think the story and the narrative of Bayek and the creation of the Hidden Ones was just great. They added a lot of great characters like Cleopatra that I think just caused for a great game. This was also really one of the first ones that they tried to transfer into the RPG element, switching the combat system and everything like that. And I do think they did a good job. Although I do feel like I don't like the stronger enemies where you have to hit them 100 times, because I do think an assassin should be able to take out just the basic enemies very quickly. I do think overall the game was very enjoyable and told a great story from beginning to end. And they also had some of the greatest DLCs we've seen as well. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Now, I really enjoyed this game. The trilogy in general is just so great overall, but Assassin's Creed Brotherhood kept a lot of the same style as Assassin's Creed 2, but it upgraded the missions, variety, and gameplay elements to create for a better experience, adding the ability to create the Brotherhood and add, assassins in and send them out on missions while getting money was a great thing that they went ahead and added, where you could have the banking system to renovate Rome. That was really fun and brought a different element into the game. And I just think it was a perfect middle part to Ezio's story. Just continuing it was great. There was really nothing wrong with this story. I think it was a great game. Even looking back and playing it, it's still fun to play. It was the perfect length in my opinion, and that's why it comes in at number 2 on my list. Coming in at number 1 is going to be Assassin's Creed 2. I'm not sure if anybody was expecting anything different. This was just such a great game, giving us the best protagonist that Assassin's Creed ever had and probably will ever have, as long as they just continue to make one-offs instead of creating trilogies as they did for Ezio. It's just a great atmosphere and a great villain. It was revolutionary in the series, coming off of Assassin's Creed 1. That was a good game, but as they went to Assassin's Creed 2, it pretty much created the benchmark for future Assassin's Creed games. Everyone still looks back on Assassin's Creed 2 and says, why couldn't we create something like that with these newer games? It was just so great from start to finish. There is pretty much nothing wrong with this game, and just a great game overall, and that's why I have it coming in at number 1 on my list. So that is my list on Assassin's Creed games in 2021, ranking them from the worst to best. Now, once again, this is going to be just my opinion, so if you do have a different opinion, I would love to hear it in the comments. Let's try to keep it respectful if you don't agree with one of my opinions or many of my opinions, just because at the end of the day, like I've said, we really all are Assassin's Creed fans, and we all just have different interpretations of the games. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below, so make sure to go ahead and do that and drop a like on the video, subscribe, and turn on post notification bells to see more videos like this, and I will see you guys in the next video.